Mm. Hello, my name is Charles Lessman. I'm a biology professor in Memphis, Tennessee. And about a month and a half ago, I had a pacemaker implanted with two leads. And the pacemaker went under my muscle and below my collarbone. And it has two leads, and the leads run one goes to my atria, right atria, and the other one goes to my right ventricle. And my problem was bradycardia. I was very slow heart rate and actually had rather high blood pressure to compensate for it. I didn't have any symptoms, but the normal symptoms that people have, especially as they get older, is a tendency to be dizzy, to black out, to be short of breath, and have very little energy, very little oomph. So, and as we get older, our heart doesn't get really any better. So it was, I thought it was a good idea to get a pacemaker. So, and the cardiologist agreed with that. So that got put in. And at the time, I was admonished not to lift anything with my left arm, because that's the side that got the pacemaker. Anything heavier than, say, 10 pounds, like a gallon of milk, that's the usual recommendation. And then also to not raise your left hand, your left arm above your head. In other words, don't get your elbow above your shoulder. And but otherwise, they said I could do pretty much, what I usually do. And so that's what I did. I did my usual things. I'm fairly active. I like doing my own yard work, and I work on old cars and things for a hobby. So, and I do research at the university that involves, some physical activity. Anyway, when I went into the clinic to get the pacemaker checked out for the first time, after about 2 weeks, it was found that the ventricular lead, the wire going into the ventricle, was fine. It was working the way it was supposed to. And basically, the pacemaker was working all right, except that the atrial lead was taking too much battery power to fire and keep the atria synchronized with the ventricle. So after having it checked a couple of times, the surgeons and the cardiologists decided that they needed to do what's called a lead revision on the atrial lead. And so just 3 days ago, a little less than 3 days ago, I had that done. Well, basically, they open up that incision again here and go in and take the lead and try to readjust within the heart, try to reposition it in the heart so that it is more firmly affixed to the wall of the ventricle, or the atria, sorry. And they were able to do that. It took they said about 55 minutes. They had to try a couple of times to really get it to fit in. And the reason why I'm telling you all this is for those who have these pacemakers with 1 or 2 or more leads, that really you need to be very careful about moving in your activities, especially moving your left arm, whichever arm, if you get one on your right side, if you're left-handed, then you're going to get it on your right side. You want to be careful with that arm. And right now I have a sling, and you can see it here. So I've got a sling on, and so that limits my motion. It's mostly the reason. It's not really so much to rest the arm or whatever. You really actually don't want to rest the arm too much. You don't want to have muscle atrophy. So what you want is to be able to move it, but very limited movement. And you certainly don't want to be doing anything real active, like yard work and that sort of thing, the thing that I was doing. And so probably I brought that on myself. They're not really sure. Sometimes they just come out on their own, they can shift. But the kind I got was the ones that screw into the wall. It's got a little, like a corkscrew at the end of it. And they turn the wire and kind of screw it into the wall. And eventually what happens is your own cells encapsulate it. They can actually make like a scar tissue around it. And then it's very firmly attached, and actually it won't come out because it becomes part of you, literally part of your heart. And after that, when that happens, after that really starts probably 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks after it begins, that process. Those cells start migrating and attaching to the wire itself inside the heart, and apparently it encapsulates all the way up to the pacemaker itself, all along that wire. So you end up with a coating of cells, and so it stays on there, it stays in there very firmly then. And that's really the reason why they want to do a revision, because that pacemaking wire will probably stay as long as I need a pacemaker. They'll put another called the generator. It's the main part of the pacemaker. They just take the old one out when the battery's about gone and put a new one in and just attach it to those same leads. Now they have new pacemakers. They're called leaderless or leadless pacemakers or wireless pacemakers. For example, the Micra is one made by Medtronic. And but I didn't really qualify for that one. They may have a new version of it now because they're doing more research on that, and that may be the future. And so eventually we'll get rid of the leads and won't need those wires at all, and just a little bullet-sized pacemaker that fits inside of the chambers of the heart and paces the heart. So the technology has gotten smaller and smaller and more powerful. So anyway, those people out there who are interested and are listening to this, and they either have a pacemaker, they just had one put in, or they know someone who's going to have one put in, I would really encourage those people to be sure to limit their activity, especially with the arm that gets the side that gets the pacemaker, and to actually wear a sling or some other way to remind you not to move your arm. You need to do it when you sleep, especially, so you don't throw your arm up over your head, because that would do it. So I was wearing my sling at night, but not during the day. And so now I'm going to wear it 24 hours a day. Okay, so I'm going to just keep this on until I'm sure that the leads are firmly attached. It's just not worth going back in again and having that done again. It is an outpatient procedure. It's not so bad. The first time you have to stay overnight. Basically, they have to check the pacemaker and so on when they first put it in. But getting leads revised is an outpatient deal, so it's not too bad. Mine has a app on my phone, so I can send data. It has a little bit of information that I get, but basically I don't really see the data that's on the phone. I wish I could, but to actually see a little bit about what's going on with my heart, I did get. My wife actually got this for me. It is a little EKG. This is a Cardia, which is a two, really has the one lead, and you put your fingers on the two pads here, and it'll read your EKG. You have to be very still. It'll do a 30-second EKG, and it'll show you your P waves, your QRS complex, and your T wave. It doesn't show the pacing spikes, which is what I wanted, but they don't. This one doesn't do that. Maybe there's some others that do. I'd be interested in knowing if anybody knows of one that does actually give the pacing spikes, because that's what I was interested in, is how often my atrial lead fires and HOF and the ventricular lead fires. That would be an interesting thing to know for me. But anyway, that's something that you can get. There's a number of them on the market now. There's one that's a 6 lead that's similar to this one, and it runs on your phone, either an Android or an iPhone. Anyway, that's mostly what I wanted to say. I have a little bit more energy, I guess. I think that the pacemaker is a marvel of miniaturization and sophistication. It's an interesting system, and theoretically, I won't need to have it changed out for 10 years or so. So, and I think they're coming out again, as I said, with ones that are leadless, and I think the leadless ones would be better. They're less invasive. That's really an outpatient kind of procedure. It goes through your femoral artery, or not artery, but a vein. And so you're not even getting an incision. You really just have a little cut above where that vein is, and then they run the pacemaker in on a wire, on a little catheter-like thing, and put it into your heart. And it mechanically, the one that I was looking at, the micro AV, mechanically senses the atrial pulse, and then it can fire the ventricle. So that's probably, as they get that improved, that just came out as I understand it, and that might be an answer for people who need to have AV, their AV node regulated. Anyway, I'm going to sign off. Again, if you want to leave me a message on the comments, that'd be great. But I just encourage you, if you're getting a pacemaker, or you've just had one put in, and it's the one that has the leads, be sure to limit your activity for 4 to 6 weeks. And seriously, you don't want to have to do what I had to go through and have it redone. Okay. So that's really the main reason why I'm doing this video, because there's a lot of other good videos, but I don't know how many had to have revision. And I just want to caution people that really seriously, it would be much better, with a much better outcome, if you just really take it easy with that arm that has on the pacemaker side. So I'll sign off. I wish you all well.